Hey guys, Duchess Braids here and welcome back to my channel. So my cousin asked me to do her baby girl Cassidy's hair for her birthday, so that's what we're doing today. The style we're doing is very I don't want to say super simple, but I do feel like a lot of you guys will be able to follow along with it. As you can tell, baby Cassidy has beautiful long hair, and immediately when she sat in my chair, I wanted to know what was her mom using. So I will be dropping that in the description as soon as I find out, because I do have to text her mom and ask her again, what are you using in her hair for this hair growth? Because I know you guys will be asking and will be curious so that we can all implement this into our own routines. All right, so I'm unraveling her hair. Her mom did wash and blow her hair out prior to, so I'm unraveling the twist and I'm just going to comb it out. And you always want to practice combing out from the ends to the root. Sometimes I go in at the root, wait till I get to like a point, and then I braid out from the ends. But if you're new to like combing or doing hair, you always want to go from the ends to the root. She has a lot of beautiful hair and she is very tender-headed like most kids are. My daughters are very tender-headed, so this is something that I'm used to, but it's also one of the reasons why I typically do not do kids' hair unless they're like maybe family or something like that, where we just understand because she's going to be throwing down a lot of crying, which is fine and is as expected. So I'm going to start with my famous middle part because this style desperately needs a really straight middle part. So I'm going in, and this is the speed that I'm going. I'm getting ready to speed it up for you guys. So remember this when you see that everything is just kind of going at a speed and it looks like I'm throwing her head around in circles. Just remember this speed. This is the normal speed that I'm going. I'm parting her hair in. All right, so I'm doing the middle part and then I'm going to go in and clean it up. And Cassidy does have a moving scalp. What does that mean? It means that when you part your hair, sometimes the scalp moves and you can get the parts wrong very easily, especially if you are pulling on the opposite end. You're not going to be able to get a super straight part. So what I do is I lightly part her hair so that I can tell if the part is straight or not. And as you guys can see, I just stepped in front of her, and that is my way to see, is this middle part straight? Because when you're parting from the back or you're behind them and you're parting, you're not going to know if the part starting from the front is super straight. So you always want to step in front of your client to ensure that the middle part is straight. And I had to straighten that part up because it was not straight in the beginning. So with her scalp moving, as you can see, I'm not tugging too hard on the sides, because when you're parting, you like to pull on one half of her hair. I don't really pull on it. I kind of just I grasp it a little bit and kind of just let my comb do the talking and not too much tugging on the opposite end of her hair. Moving scalp is doesn't mean anything's wrong. It's just, 50 to even more people have that, and it just makes parting a little bit harder, but nothing is wrong with that. So once I did the middle part, I went over to part her hair in half, going the opposite way. So the style that we're doing today is I'm gonna do a half up and the back half goes up and the front half goes up, and we're going to meet into two really cute buns, almost like Mickey Mouse buns. And so we're going to have some hearts in there, some heart braids, and just a really cute simple design. So I'm going to part from half down the middle, like a middle part, and then across the ear from ear to ear. And I like my part to fall behind the ear. But once I get to the middle, you also want to make sure that when you're parting from the middle to the ear, that you are thinking about the location of your buns. So you always want to make sure your part is not too far close to the front or too far back towards the back, so that your bun, when you put your buns, it is in the perfect location. I can't say what is a perfect location for you guys, but Once I look at the client's face and their head, I know exactly where I would want the buns to go. So now the front, we're at the front, and I just did that curved part because the front two braids coming towards her face is going to be a heart braid. So I part that first curve, and now I'm lining up the other half, and this is why that middle part is pertinent, because this is going to give me symmetry for those hearts that I'm going to be putting into her hair. So once I part the first curve, now I'm trying to line up the second curve, and you want to continuously look at the first one that you did to ensure that this is equal. So for this heart braid, you do want to make sure that both those humps are equally sized so that it looks good. And then I'm just bringing the parts inward so that it looks more like a heart, but clearly I can't part it all the way to a point because we need that space. So for the most part, I'm just cleaning up her hair, cleaning up the part. I'm checking, double checking, making sure that everything is symmetrical. And then I'm going to get that little side out the way. And then I'm going to go into parting the first half. So the first thing I do is just cut that first hump in half. So that second hump on the other side is just needs to kind of be out of the way. And then once I part that first hump in half at a triangular part, I begin to start the inside of the heart. So this is the inside of the heart, and I'm going to braid it outwards, and then I'm going to curve around, and it's going to give me that half of a heart shape. And as I'm doing this, I'm throwing in some stitch braids because I do feel like this style looks great with more stitch braids. We're not adding any hair. As you can tell, she has really long, beautiful hair. She doesn't need anything added. And she's turning 5, so she really doesn't need any added hair in her hair. All right, so when you get to this side, the heart is going to cross over. So once I got here, I ended up having to pull some hair out from the other half. So that is what I'm doing now. I'm unraveling it so that I can put just like a little snidbit from the other side so that I can cross the heart over to the other side. So the heart at the end is going to be crisscross, and you're going to have two braids falling in the front. And I'm going to show you guys how I was able to attach them in at the end. So you want to stick around for that because I do end up sewing the ends of the heart together so that they could stay separated. All right, so what I'm doing now is pulling out a little bit of hair from that side because the end of my other heart, the other half of the heart, is going to end up on the other side, and I needed some hair to attach it to. So that's why I ended up pulling out a little hair from that braid. And again, I lined up the part that I did in the middle, the triangular part, and I did around the exact same size. So it's very important to keep some symmetry in this style so that everything could look equal. So you always just want to double check to make sure that everything looks around the same size. Sometimes people go in and they're just parting blindlessly, and that's the easiest way to mess up on a style. You always want to take the time to just stop, double check to make sure everything is equal and symmetrical, and that's uh plays a big part in the style looking its best. So now that I've done the heart braid, I'm going to go in and start the first 3 braids that goes on this side of the quadrant. So basically I'm only going to be doing 6 braids throughout the whole front. So on this half side is going to be 3 braids. So what I did was line this part up with the heart part, the part of the heart. So the end of the heart, I lined the parts up, and I curved it a little bit because again, we're doing 2 Mickey Mouse buns at the top. So I kind of curved it a little bit so it comes up, but not too much to where I'm going towards the center too much to where it will look like I'm doing only one bun at the top. Instead, I'm doing two buns. So now I'm just putting some jam in the middle because the part is so thick that I just need her hair fully coated. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this braid in the center of where the heart is. So normally you could either start the braid going straight across, but I decided I'm going to throw a triangle at the center of where the part is, and I'm just going to curve this braid around, and I'm going to end up on the other side of the part. So the part to my left side is where I'm going to end up ending this braid. So continue to watch as I curve this braid from the start of the heart, as you can see, and I'm going to end up not in the middle, but on the other end of this section. So this is going to set the precedence for those two buns that I'm going to have at the top. All right, so as you can see, I ended up on the other half. I'm not in the center of it. I'm all the way on the other side. So I curved it from one end in the middle of the heart and did it diagonally to the other side. And then all my other braids that I do is going to meet up um, on that side so that we could start the beginning of our first bun. All right, so now for the second braid, I'm going to curve it from a point because I do want it to curve up and go upwards towards that other braid. And I also want the braid that is closest to the ear to also curve up and go towards the top. And I always put some jam in the center because we're not only that we're stitching it, but sometimes when the center is a little dry, the stitches don't lay as flat and it just doesn't look as neat. So I always put just a little jam and then I just kind of slick both sides up and in the direction of where I want my braids to go. And for this braid, I am curving. It is going to stay in the center and I am just curving it around and up towards the end. All right, so as you can see, we're at the end of this braid and you still have to leave a good amount of space to finish the braid off. But now we're at the last braid on this side. And as you can see, it curves up to a point and that is exactly where I'm going to braid it. So I'm just coating the sides right now and I'm going to brush it down. I don't know if I put some in the middle of this one or not. I probably had enough where the middle wasn't so thick, so I didn't have to put any on the middle of this braid. So now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to curve this braid starting at a point at the front and just go around and go up. And this is going to be one half and this is going to be the first half of that first bun. And moms, stitching can be a lot of work. And not only that, it can be a little bit painful for the girls. So if you don't have to stitch, don't stitch. It makes the style go by so much faster when you don't stitch and also probably a little less painful for the babies. But yes, when you do stitch, it does give the style a different look and it does look a little bit neater and a little bit cuter. However, like to not torture the babies, I would say just run through the style, if especially if they're crying and not tolerating the style. So now that I'm at the back, so I went ahead and did this the same thing on the other half of her head, and now we're at the back. So the back is also going to have a heart, and the heart is going upwards. So about halfway through the back, I started the first hump of the heart, and there's going to be 6 braids at the back as well, 3 on each side. So you do need to leave room for 2 other braids on the other half of that heart. So this is the first um the first half of the heart, and the part ends right in the center. So now I'm going over to the other side. If you're following me now, where that first braid at the top, the part ends, I'm lining that part up and kind of bringing it over. All right. So you really have to pay attention to what I'm doing here. And you might not be able to tell right away, but once I start braiding, you'll be able to see what I did. So as you can see, I'm putting that out the way, but that part lined up with the first braid on the right half of her head. And that's because my heart is going to come up and go over onto the other side. So right now I'm parting it down, and that half on the right is going to be the beginning of my heart. I'm going to braid that down around and go over onto the right hand side. So this is where I feel like could be a little bit confusing and difficult, but I do believe you guys can see visually. Um, Sometimes I can't find the words that's best to explain what I'm doing, because I myself am a visual learner. So if I was watching this, I would be able to tell, but not everyone is a visual learner. They need it explained as well. So I'm starting the heart, and I'm going to curve around, and the first half of the heart will end up on the other side. And I wanted it to meet up with the end of that top braid, because we're going to be doing 2 Mickey Mouse buns at the top. And at this point, baby Cassidy's a little bit over it. She's getting a little fussy again. She is turning 5 soon, and she is very tender-headed. So at the back, they have to hold her head down. My daughter, she hates holding her head down. So we are going through it a little bit. But now I'm going to part the other half of the heart. So now this is where, again, the middle part comes in handy, because it has to be symmetrical. And you kind of have to pay attention to the size of the previous half heart that you did to ensure that these two are both the same size. And what I don't like to do is part it all at once, especially at the back. I did that at the front, but since the back is a little bit more complicated, it was just going to be a lot of hair in the way to end up parting the whole heart at one time. So I parted the first half, I braided it out the way. So now that I can see the part clearly, I can ensure that the other half is symmetrical as well. And it takes time, you guys. This was not done in one swoop. I kept going in and out. I had to back up to look at it. I had mama helping me look at it to make sure, like, hey, is this symmetrical? And so once I got it right, I started to braid. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I went also on the other side of her hair, and I parted that side out as well. So I attached a part from the left side, the part of the left side, I met up with that, and I attached that little piece up there, the one that I'm holding right now. So I did that as well. So this braid is going to crisscross at the top as well. So once I start braiding out, I go do my turn and I go over. I'm going to cross that first braid and end up on the other side. All right. And a little lesson for you guys. Once I am turning my heart, I typically just I'll go around the corner of the heart and only pull from the outer end so that I can turn. So I know once you're stitch braiding, you like to stitch on one side, stitch on the other side, stitch on one side, stitch on the other side. But when I'm doing a heart and I'm going around the curve, I really just pull hair from one end, which is the outer line end, and until I get a full turn, and then I continue to stitch on both sides. And as you guys can see, I went across the first braid and now I am all the way on the other side of her head, and the heart is complete. So now that the heart is complete, it's still not going to be a easy journey because we're at the back of her head. So one thing I notice is that um, sometimes the hair will kind of start to fuzz up. So you do want to go back in with a blow dryer, and this is going to help with the pain of braiding their hair. Is that if they have natural hair, sometimes along the process of braiding, the hair gets a little bit more tangled. And even though she came with it already blow dried out really well, once you start braiding and you start putting gel and all that stuff in the hair, it does get a little bit puffed up and a little bit more tangled. And so to eliminate her having more pain while braiding, I like to stop and just blow the hair out a little bit straighter so that once I start braiding and I'm pulling and I'm like crisscrossing the hair and pulling out, it's not getting tangled up and causing more pain for the toddler or even for adults. So sometimes you do have to stop and just kind of blow that out. So now I'm going in and I'm just parting a curve along the heart, and I just chose to do the outer line hair first. It doesn't matter which one you do, but I just chose to do that one first. And once I was done with that, I did the other one, the one in the center, and the style was basically complete. So I'm just brushing each end and just ensuring that I have a smooth lined hair on both sides, and then I begin to braid the back. And mama's helping me hold her head up because it's kind of difficult to braid going upwards when you're in the back. And so one, if it's a toddler, they don't want to hold their head down, and it's just difficult for them to hold their head down, and it's already difficult to braid from the back going up, not only on the braider but also the client as well. All right, so now we're on the final braid, and again we're braiding going from a point of the heart, from the center of the heart, and we're just going upwards. And now we're at the end, and as you can tell on baby Cassidy's face, it has not been the most fun, but she is about to get excited in a minute once she sees her hair. And this is the joy of doing kids hair, even though I don't do kids hair often except my own, is just seeing them in the mirror after they've given pretty much hell getting their hair done. Once they see their hair in the mirror, they get so excited and so happy. And that just kind of brings back so much joy. And to know that, this wasn't all for nothing. So I went ahead and twisted those two buns, and I put these big bobos on her hair, which I've been itching to use for a very long time. I ended up putting some beads at the front and just putting a rubber band to secure that last bead. I do plenty of rounds, but not too tight to where it's going to damage the end of her hair. And yeah, she's helping me right now. She's excited about the beads. And what I'm going to show you guys next is sewing. As you can tell, the heart has separated because it wasn't enough hair to hold it on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the heart tails together, and I'm going to also tell you guys about what I wish I had done while sewing the heart braids together, so that when you guys start to do this style, you can implement that as well. So so I'm going to crisscross the heart. Once I'm done putting the beads on, I'm going to crisscross the heart and I'm going to sew the center. But what I wish I did while sewing the center was, oh, never mind, I'm doing the baby hairs right now, which is also a pertinent part of this style. But let me just continue. So while I'm sewing the heart across, I just sewed the centerpiece just to keep them separated. But because the hair is just hanging solely in Cassidy's face, and no one loves hair in their face, especially toddlers. I know I wouldn't like hair just hanging in my face like that. So I'm for sure know that the toddlers, like, even though they think it's cute and the beads are click clacking and doing the most, they're not going to enjoy the hair just kind of hanging in the center of their face like that. So what I want you guys to do is when you are sewing the ends of the braids together, you want to go along the heart and also sew the end of the hair a little bit attached to the heart, just so that the hair separates a little bit more out of the face. So if I had pulled that the end of the hair back a little bit and attached it to the end of the heart up some, guys, just bear with me here, which find the words. So if I attach the end of the braid to the heart a little bit, the hair with the dangling ends would separate a little bit more out of her face. Although I know, like for my daughter, she just ends up attaching, whenever do beads in front of her head like that, she'll just pull the hair back behind her ears. So as you can see, Cassidy's pulling on those ends, but I wish I had attached it more to the braids so that they separated. When they fell, they didn't fall center in her face like that. They would kind of fall on the sides. But as you can see, she can tuck them behind her ear. So her day to day is probably with them tucked behind her ear. But if they're doing like a cute picture or a photo shoot, they could just pull it in front of her face like that. All right, so this is the final results. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Will you be trying this style on your toddler or anyone else? Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and comment.